This is the RTX 5090 and it's absolute peak PC gaming, and I finally got to witness the sheer excellence and greatness of this graphics card firsthand for the first time. God, this thing's so big. Gigabyte sent their Aorus Master RTX 5090. They didn't pay for this video and they don't get to preview it before it's uploaded, and unfortunately I don't get to keep it after this video, which makes me so sad because I've witnessed peak GPU power and I've got to let go of it again, which kind of makes me sad. But anyways, my time with the 5090, spoiler alert, has been absolutely awesome. But this is what we should expect from a GPU which costs around £2,000, and for a model like this it's about 2.4K, which is not very cheap at all. Oh, and by the way, did I mention it consumes 600 watts under a full gaming load, which is about the same as a mid-range gaming PC, but at least in turn for this, you get a whole ton of gaming performance. To find out how much though, we've tested it at both 1440p and 4K, and we're not going to use any of that upscaling nonsense because we're just going to brute force it today. After all, it's a 5090, it should do this. And all testing has been done in our Ryzen 7 7800X 3D PC, which, to be honest, it was a good thing I got that CPU before I got this, so it really works wonders, trust me. By the way, all the specs for this system are linked in the description down below. As for the driver, we are using the latest NVIDIA Game Ready one. I can't remember it, so it'd be down there. And resizable bar has been enabled, so let's see how it gets on. Let's start off the benchmarks today with Cyberpunk set to the Ultra preset. Well, there's no other preset we're going to set it to, let's be honest. Anyways, we're getting 158 FPS on average at 1080p, which is great performance. Not 1080p, 1440p. 4K sees the average frame rate stay above 100 FPS, which is not something we've ever seen in Cyberpunk, so that's absolutely fantastic performance there. And the frame time is still looking smooth too. If you ever wanted a competitive level frame rate in a AAA game, well, the 5090 does that in Dying Light the Beast. We're getting more than 220 FPS on average with a very smooth frame time as well, so performance here is absolutely phenomenal. But 4K, in my opinion, is still the sweet spot. We're getting just under 160 FPS and the frame time is looking buttery smooth here as well, so zero issues on the 5090 in a very optimized game like Dying Light the Beast. Peak GPU meets peak video game in Battlefield 6, and yeah, performance is great here. 200 plus FPS at 1440p is great, I will take that. And the 1% low is also looking very good. And then at native 4K, 130 FPS on the Overkill preset, mind you, it's absolutely fantastic performance. And the frame time is also looking very smooth yet again. Just like Dying Light 2, if you wanted to play a AAA game with competitive frame rates, you can do that in God of War Ragnarok. 285 FPS at 1440p will do very nicely. I had to double check those performance figures as I thought I accidentally mistyped or something. No, it's genuinely that level of performance. And then at 4K we go down to 179, which still is very good. That is more than smooth enough for a AAA experience like this. And the frame time, yet again, is looking incredibly buttery smooth. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, yet again, is just so well polished, and it will run fine on basically anything. It will run on like a Vega 56 or something like that. However, on the 5090, yeah, performance across the board is great. You're getting more than 100 FPS at both 1080p and 1440p, so there's zero issues there. Even with a 5090, the 1% low still aren't that great in Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Who would have thought? Anyways, 115 FPS at 1440p is still pretty decent. And at 4K, we're still getting more than 100 FPS on average, and the 1% low isn't looking the worst here, so it's not the end of the world, yet the game is still more than playable. So yeah, who would have thought the 5090 has absolutely zero issue playing games at both 4K and 1440p when ray tracing isn't enabled. To be honest, when you're spending this amount on a graphics card, do you really expect this performance? Probably, but I wasn't expecting frame rates of around 230-ish in AAA games. Yes, admittedly at 1440p it's more of a CPU benchmark because the 5090 is just capable of producing that many frames. So if you're going to buy this GPU, make sure you've got an X3D CPU like the 7800 X3D or 9800 X3D. Speaking of crazy high frame rates, next up are the esports games. To be honest, I don't really recommend a 5090 for esports, mainly because it's just that overkill and you could get away with something like a 5070 Ti. Anyways, in Fortnite, you're going to be getting around 446 FPS on average with a 1% low of 252. Which admittedly isn't the most excellent of 1% lows, it's still more than playable. Where the 5090 matters a lot more is 4K. You're still getting just below 400 FPS on average, and that 1% low doesn't really budge all too much. It's still not the smoothest, but it's definitely playable. Rainbow Six Siege on the medium preset sees great performance across both resolutions. That's because at 1440p we were heavily CPU bound, which refers to the point where I think this GPU is just kind of wasted on esports games. You don't really need it, unless if you also play AAA games as well. So yeah, genuinely a 5070 Ti with something like a 9800 X3D is going to be a much better sort of pairing in my opinion, as more of that GPU will be used and it's a whole lot more affordable than this graphics card, not to mention. So that's what I'd do there. However, if you were a gamer who liked to dabble with esports games every now and then, but you mainly play AAA games, obviously the 5090 is going to play both of them just fine. And for some reason, if you wanted to play competitive games at 4K, the 5090 really does shine here. But anyone would buy a 5090 for its ray tracing performance, and thankfully it's, well, you don't even need to enable DLSS, put it that way. There's a bit of a juxtaposition here because Hogwarts Legacy didn't really perform all too well, but there's either a bug with the game or just my system in general, because the GPU was just hovering around like 50%, which led it to get the exact same performance at both resolutions, albeit the 1% low was slightly lower at 1440p. So take this result with a grain of salt. But you don't need to do that with Cyberpunk 2077 because the average frame rate at 1440p was 109 FPS on the RT Ultra preset with no DLSS, which is crazy. And we still get 60 FPS at 4K with no upscaling, which is just so crazy. I would never expect this on a graphics card because whenever I usually do my testing with ray tracing, we always enable DLSS upscaling, but we don't need to do that here. And then there's The Witcher 3 on the RT Ultra preset. Recently this ran pretty poorly on the RTX 5060. Admittedly that GPU is far more affordable than this, but we're not running into any stuttering and certainly no VRAM related problems. Performance across the board here is absolutely great. We're getting 93 FPS at 1440p, and at 4K we're still getting more than 60 FPS, so there's absolutely zero problems there, which leaves you a lot of headroom for settings tweaking and even upscaling if you fancy a bit more performance. So the RTX 5090 is that powerful, you can just brute force ray tracing with no upscaling required. Sometimes when I enable RT on my 5070 Ti, I will enable upscaling at 1440p. Now this is down to a matter of opinion, but at 4K, personally I would enable ray tracing on the 5090 just to get absolutely obscene amounts of performance for virtually no quality loss. But that's the best thing about a no compromise graphics card like the 5090. You've got a lot of options open to you. If you don't want to enable upscaling, you don't have to, but if you want to get more performance, you can. Also, you've got enough VRAM in the tank if you wanted to enable multi-frame generation as well. So you literally have every single option open to you. And dare I say, if you wanted to do a path tracing playthrough of like Cyberpunk or something, you can do it on this with upscaling. So because of this, there is no doubt in my mind that the RTX 5090 is a 4K graphics card, but to be honest, when you're spending this amount of money on a GPU, you should hope that it can play 4K with absolutely zero compromises. Like, this GPU literally does anything gaming related and it does it well. To be honest, the only games that won't perform well on this GPU are unoptimized slop and they're probably not even worth playing anyway. So that's not the fault of this GPU, Borderlands 4. But if you wanted to game at 1440p on this GPU for some reason, make sure you've got a fantastic gaming CPU. Something like the 7800X3D we use today, which is probably the minimum CPU I'd pair with this graphics card, or better yet, the 9800X3D. These are like the only CPUs I recommend pairing with this graphics card. This is because you're paying an absolute ton of money for the GPU. You may as well spend like an extra how much on a processor. Like, obviously, if you're buying a graphics card like this, money's no object to you anyway. But if you wanted competitive frame rates in AAA games at Quad HD, this GPU and CPU combo can certainly provide that experience for you. Like, if we look at games like Dying Light, we were getting more than 220 FPS on average on the high preset, which is essentially ultra in that game, so it's just absolutely crazy gaming performance. So, I think it's fair to say that RTX 5090 is indeed peak PC gaming, as nothing's going to touch this GPU until the RTX 6090 comes out, which might kind of be a bit of a meme card because of the name. However, even when that's released, the 5090 will still be absolutely fantastic because it's still got those crazy amount of CUDA cores and the 32GB of VRAM, and last but not least, excellent gaming performance. But if you want to look at a more modest graphics card, you can check this one out up here. With that being said, I'll catch you in the next one and sadly let go of my 5090, which isn't mine, but goodbye.